Good evening, everyone. Hello. I'm loud, so I'm just going to project, okay? I'm Liz Rischel, and I am the Executive Director of the Warren Heritage Society, and we want to welcome you to Third Thursday. We are excited to have you here. This is probably one of the biggest crowds we've had. So we're thrilled to have you as part of our Third Thursday programs. And I want to thank Erin Reedy and her team at Samuel's Library for providing the space and helping us plan our Third Thursday programs. And of course, I'm going to introduce our wonderful speaker here as well. But I wanted to say thank you, Joyce. You're amazing. I feel like there's a lot more that could be said. So I tricked Joyce a little bit because I asked her to do something for me so we could put it in the newsletter for the Women's Resource Center. And it is going in the newsletter, but it also allowed me to write an intro with her. So I hope you will indulge me for just a second. For Joyce Jenkins-Wimmer, community service has never been simply something to fit into a busy schedule. It has been a way of life, one rooted in childhood, strengthened through experience, and sustained by the fulfillment she finds in working alongside others. Joyce grew up in a small West Virginia community where local organizations provided important opportunities for connection. Inspired by parents who believed strongly in helping others, she learned early that service could create both purpose and belonging. After college, Joyce moved to Front Royal and began seeking out ways to become involved. The sense of fulfillment is what has kept me active in the community, she says. Beyond her long career as an educator, Joyce has built an extraordinary legacy of service through her work with the Warren Coalition, Warren Heritage Society, Friends of the Library, Front Royal United Methodist Church, and the Front Royal Women's Resource Center, amongst many others. Her involvement with the Women's Resource Center introduced her to women of many different ages, interests, and experiences. Through the Dare to Dream program, she helped women recognize that their goals were possible and that a supportive community was ready to help them succeed. At the end of August, Joyce will move to South Carolina to be closer to her daughter. While her presence will be deeply missed, her example will continue to inspire those who have had the privilege of working with her. Joyce encourages everyone to remember the legend of the starfish. You can't save all the starfish washed up on the sand, but you can save at least one if you take action. Your action makes a difference. Through decades of education, friendship, leadership, and service, Joyce has made that difference, one person and one community at a time. Serving tonight, Joyce's talk is just going to be absolutely fantastic. And then please stick around for maybe a little snack afterwards, okay? Thank you so much, Liz. I don't think anyone raised your hand this month. I did a shortened version of this presentation several years ago for retired teachers. And I just feel strongly as a teacher and more empathy that people aren't aware of how we got to where we are. And I don't even have all the information. I've had people here who lived in schools, two different people who lived in schools in Warren County, and I don't even think they're on the lesson book jump through tonight. At one time, there were 20, in one of the resources I was reading, at one time there were 24 rural schools in Wallace County. And I'll give you a little background about why that probably occurred. The Virginia Constitution in 1869 provided for public schools. There were no compulsory attendance laws, no standards for teachers, no required curriculum, no uniform length of terms, and schools in cities were very different than rural. And at that time, Front Royal was considered further away. I'll share an excerpt with you where someone in Washington here thought
She used to go to Front Oil maybe once a month with her father when he went. Other than that, they never went here. So now we go from Wellington to Front Oil 5 times a day if we want to. It's not that big a deal. So that explains part of it. Also, the formation of the schools was left to the parents. The most that the county or city ever did was sometimes pay a teacher. But parents would go out and find somebody they thought were capable of teaching the kids. And so oftentimes they would buy a house or build a house. And you'll see some of these schools look very much like houses. And some of them are homes today. One's an Airbnb. Again, one's a home. Two of them, actually, that I can think of right off the top of my head. So, there's a lot of differences and a lot of changes can you hear me with that? Yeah. Is it okay? It is. Oh, okay. Okay. I just moved my hands a lot, and I had to sit away, and I'm not part of Callie's here. But the information I want to share with you tonight is based on a report I knew of from working in the school board office. It is a collection of the information presented to the insurance companies to insure the schools in 1961. So all the schools that are in the presentation were actually a part of the school system in 1961. So there are some earlier ones that I know in some of the research I read, and there were other ones, but they were gone by, earlier than 61. And the last one actually closed in Benton Hill and Oliver, both closed in 1977. That was the latest that any of his schools were. So one of the pieces, of information that is interesting to look at, if you look at the census population from 1840 through 2020, and you again see the estimate for 2025, you see that there are peaks and valleys of growth in the county, but in looking at the schools and the development of schooling in the county, you can see that between amazing increase from 1970 to 1980, and then again from 80 to 90, 90 to 2000. You can see when the growth started, and that's when we saw the newer schools that are now 30, 40 years old. As older people think 30 to 40 is pretty young, so I guess okay. But part of the reason that the counties, the rural schools were able to still exist is because there really wasn't the need for population to increase the schools. Okay. These are in order of their age or when they were built. This is Buckton. Anybody go to Buckton? Yeah. And that's Kate shared with us, they're up here on the table, that this is a picture she had, and it's not a photograph, it is a picture, one of those, commercial ones that depict what early schools were like. And he said her classroom in Bucknell looked just like that, except for the stove. And she has a picture of Miss Jennings. Like you knew Miss Jennings. That was a but. But the school itself, and in the paper here, was 1 story, no basement. Lighting is electric. No plumbing. Heat is by oil. It was constructed in 1902, remodeled in 1924, minor repairs in 54. In 1961, it was vacant. Okay, so that's what the insurance report says. It's a house now. Okay. Okay, it's. Anybody recognize this one? Rockland. Rockland. Just before you turn to go to the country club, it's a little antique store, antique shop now. Okay. Again, it was built about 1902, remodeled in 1920. In 61, it was in fair condition. It's actually in pretty good condition. I'm sure when whoever owns it now took it over, must have done a little bit of repair. But it is in very good shape. Most of these schools had hardwood floors and were built very sturdily. So again, most of them are still standing. And the foundation was stone. And the interior finish is an ordinary lath and plaster. Okay? And it was valued at $3,500. So, and that's this one. Harmony Hollow. Harmony Hollow. It's at the intersection of routes 600 and 604. It's about 5 miles out of town. Today, we don't build a school if we have kids 5 miles out of town. We can have them much further out of town and we'll still bus them into town. 1 story, no basement, metal covered, foundation of stone, floors of wood, lighting is by electricity. See, we weren't always in the dark ages. Heat is by stove. There is no plumbing. No plumbing at Hardwood Hollows. Okay, the building was, it was built in 1905 and in 55. And this is one that they did not have information for 55, but it was included, for 61, but it was included in the 55. Did not have information beyond 55. But the picture and information was included in the 61 document. So, now, Audubon. Audubon has had probably, in my estimation, more renovation to its exterior than any of the schools I think you'll see this evening. It's out on 619. It's a grocery store now. Looks more like this. Okay. But in 1955, it looked like this. It had a bell tower, a small bell tower, had electric lights, heating by stove on metal mats. Apparently, some of the early schools did have challenges with small fires. One of the schools, I can't remember which one, when I get to it, I'll point it out. They were rejected for insurance until they added fire extinguishers. Okay, so, but there was no plumbing at Audubon at that time. And then, this painting, I heard some of the earlier titles, Browntown. I thought it was too, I think somebody. It's Audubon. And the reason I know it's out of order is because the artist put a note on that. Browntown School, Browntown, Virginia, where Durham raised taught here for 5 years, 1931 to 1936, the beginning of a successful teaching career. How many of you knew this story? Yeah. I remember Rob and Beck, the little sisters, and if I talked with them, I think they were in 15th Street 1 year before. So yeah, Audubon. It was saying, right? It's on right. It's like, so let me see. It does say ranch. Like, you smart. Yeah. How about it? Well, so like, I'm not famous. I don't have a big battles. Okay. It's really interesting. I did not know this until tonight. A friend of mine that's here told me that she didn't get to teach at Audubon. She was supposed to teach at Audubon, and it closed before she got there. I was supposed to teach at Audubon, and they took me out to see the school. And when I came up on the recruiting trip, and when I got up here, they said, school board officer called and said, please come out of school board office before you go to your school. And I went to school board office and they said, just want to let you know we've moved you to 15th Street. And my kids was at 15th Street. My kids was transferred to Audubon, then transferred from there to A.S. Rhodes, and he was the first principal at Leslie Fox Castle, which is the first new school in the county in a long time. Okay. Now Browntown. I guess I was one slide ahead with the picture. It's Audubon. There, Browntown. Everybody recognizes Browntown because we all spend a lot of time there, I hope. It's a wonderful community center. They have a wonderful bazaar and wonderful yard sales. It's a very active community. It had 4 rooms. It was a big school, but no basement. It was modernized the summer of 1949, and that it had the lighting is modern and by electricity, modern plumbing. Heat is from a hot water oil furnace. So we're making a little bit of a shift. We're upgrading how we're heating the buildings. It was originally constructed in 1913. And is in 61 was in excellent condition. It must be in pretty good condition now because it's still being used, right? Okay, next we got financial. Oops. Oh, that's okay. Let's see, you don't recognize that. Let's see if you recognize this. Okay, subject. This is Bentonville. Yeah, this is Bentonville. And when we get to Limetown, if people will understand why you thought it was the Browns. Okay, so Bentonville, 1 story. It had a partial basement, 4 rooms, had a porch with a metal covering, which is on the. And if one of the earlier, I went the wrong one. Earlier pictures, you can see. These are from the archives, these 2 pictures. Okay, it was originally built in 1914, remodeled in 1938. And in 61, it had recently been renovated and was in excellent condition. and worth $27,000. Okay, Reliance. Reliance Elementary School. Some of you may know Lorraine Dovell. Lorraine has worked for many years in the school system. She also was a member of the Warren Heritage Society and did a lot of work for them. She did a compilation of what I would like somebody in this room who knows anything about any one of these schools to replicate. She did the history and reunions of the Reliance School. She researched all of the information. What I'm presenting tonight is just the tip of the iceberg. You have to start somewhere, you know? And because I knew the 1961 document, I started there and then picked up little pieces and talked to some people. And I did interview one person and got to learn a little bit about it. But Hannah's the archivist at the Heritage Society. She's an excellent resource. The files at the Heritage Society are amazing. So if you'd like to do some digging, it would be wonderful for the Heritage Society to have a compilation of information about each of the schools, because that is a part of history, that there are still people around who remember the schools, remember their teachers, have pictures, things of that sort that you could compile. And so it was built in 1917. Got to find the next sheet. Okay. I didn't read the whole document. I just skimmed it for some information. But it's really interesting because it was built in 1917, which is not so much out of time frame for some of the other schools, but it's very distinctively different. It had 2 stories, 3 rooms, porches, and an auditorium. Okay. Wooden floors, lights are electric, plumbing was modern. Heat is hot water with furnace, located in a 1-story cinder block. Let's see. There's a side picture of it, and I don't see the one. Oh, that's okay. There is another picture of it, and you can see that the heating unit was outside of the building itself and into the building. It was constructed in 1917, well maintained and in good condition. It is a private home today. The site where it is built was the Old Dominion Academy in 1914. It burned, and the school was rebuilt on that property. At one time, there was a connection between the school and Shenandoah University. And when Tracy Fitzsimmons, who's the president of Shenandoah University, first came to the area, she and her husband bought the school. That's where they lived the first year. It's been sold again since then, but the school actually closed in 1969. But the value of it was only $22,000. I don't know if we did those estimates. Should. Recognize this one. Linden. 1 story, no basement, 2 rooms, had porches with metal covered, gabled roofs, floors of wood, interior finish, including the ceilings, was wood. Electric lights, no plumbing, heat by stoves on metal mats. Again, that safety factor. It was constructed in 1917, and in 61, the lights, electric lights had recently been installed, and remodeling was planned. I've got some sheets out of architecture. And did we miss? I know we didn't miss one, did we? Must be in here. We'll skip and we'll go back. We'll come back. Okay. Probably recognize this. AS Roads. Although it looks very similar from this angle, you will see from a front view, it looks very different than it does now. Initially, it was one story with a partial basement. Plumbing was modern. It's constructed in 1935. In 1951, a wing was added to the west side and similar to the original building. And that's what we're familiar with today, the long hall. And it was recently renovated in the past 5 years. Time flies. It's just interior, the exterior pretty much remains the same. And this is the only picture we could locate. But you can see where the original building was, and then you can see that wing added to that other side. Let's see what, oh, okay. Recognizing? E. Wilson Lawson. Into the. Here, it was not called E. Wilson Lawson. Let me know. Sure. It's called the Front Royal Elementary School. Okay. It was called the Front, and let me see this next picture. This looks more like you recognize E. Wilson Morrison. Okay. There, one side of the building was an intermediate school. Let's see if I can get the right side. To the left and west of the building was the intermediate school. So to the left and the west would have been which side? This side, right? Okay. All right. Okay, so that was the intermediate school. And in 1952, the original building was built in 1935. Okay. In 1952, they had two buildings and they connected them between and created an auditorium. And then there was a room above it. And, within the past 2 years, they've removed the auditorium, and that's a multi-purpose room. But an interesting thing about this building is, let's see. I can show the picture first, yes. There was fire, December 1943. I had always heard that there had been a fire there, but I didn't really know anything about it. One of the good things about moving is you have to go through everything. I'm in the process of moving. I went through a scrapbook that belonged to my late husband's mother. And 1943, I think he must have born until 45, so he was even born, but she had saved this Bring the Born suit. Oh, okay. We have some of those pictures in here. That's the fire in action. Now, I'm so excited. Something I learned in this process was how to, none of these other, well, there's one other picture toward the end, but this is been enhanced by Chat GPT. Because you can see the paper picture, and all I did was ask it to colorize it to emphasize the flames. And people were standing, and there are pictures of people standing watching. And this is what it looked like after the side. You hate it? That side, yeah, because they weren't connected at that side. So there were two separate. And so this side. But I wanted to share with you what front of the article, but and it doesn't say who wrote the article. But she wrote in here, as the crowd gathered at the leaping flames, small children murmured that they had left their books and they had taken their favorite doll for the Christmas play. They realized the materialistic loss because it was their school now. It was formerly the high school admitted, and the high school at that time didn't go up to 12th grade. Compulsory attendance was 14 and high schools went up to 8th grade. And here's that there were colleges in Front Royal. That means they're at high schools. I think that brings that to it. That's another piece. See, you know, the district, things that would make that, but they don't want this stuff, right? But as they watched the rooms crumble, they talked about the fun they had there. The fun they had there hating school and at the same time loving it. I heard a girl remark, the auditorium is burning. Remember the play we gave there the year we graduated? Another answer, yes. And remember how many basketball games we lost there? There were many differences too. School buildings have a kind of strange fascination. You spend so much time there that it seems you become attached to them and always want to go back. And I think that's true, and I think that's why it's important to know and remember the playing the Packenberry. Not to try to go back. You know, what things. I don't want to go to a school building that doesn't have air conditioning. It has without air conditioning. I mean, we went to Warren High School before there was air conditioning. You remember, right? But schools do have a special place. Now, this next picture, this was the Front Royal Temporary Trailer School, rear of the Front Royal Primary and Intermediate School, which now Wilson Morrison, on Crescent Street. Now, I'll show you this picture and then we'll get to the next one. Okay, those are both taken the same year. Okay, so you can see this one, they bought pieces of building from the federal government and kind of pieced them together. A gentleman whose name I can't remember, and I lost that page in my notes, but Lorraine Odell did interviews or asked members of the class of 1959 to write about their memories of that year. That was the year of massive resistance. That was a graduate class that weren't able to graduate. Asked them for some of their memories. A gentleman in that class said he started school at E. Wilson Morrison in a building that had tar roofs on it. She had one stove in the middle, and I understand it's a very grainy picture. You can't see it very well, but sawdust on the floor. It does say that they had sawdust on the floor in this building, and they were using insurance money to rebuild, and so before the year was over, it was in this shape. So it was definitely in better shape, and it was to be temporary classrooms? Those temporary classrooms are still there. They're still being used. They do have solid floors and they do have heat. They don't have just a stove between two classrooms, but those buildings are still being used. Now, this one you'll see. Oops. Yeah, that's what it looks like now. It's what's being used now. We are told that the snow, this is in 1961, the insurance report. We are told that the stoves connected to the non-standard flues are not used. And if this is the case, the non-standard flues should be removed. Inasmuch there's a charge rate for them. Housekeeping in this building is poor and makes a hazardous situation. There were shavings on the floor, accumulated trash, and in the oil room, empty cans and trash. So that building wasn't doing too good in 61, but it's still there. Some of you may have children, grandchildren attending class there. Okay. This picture is the only picture we could find, but it's not a very good picture. This is Ressie Jeffries, the combined school. When the Front Royal Colored School, and there's one picture of that, when that school closed and everybody went back to school, then, or even before everybody went back, all of the students that had been out of the county and were attending school went to Ressie Jeffries. Okay, and this is in the 1961. This was a picture from 1961, but I think the picture is later than that because I taught at Ressie Jeffries, and it may be 61 because I wasn't here in 61, but the configuration there is an addition. There was an addition added to both ends of the school, and there's a breezeway on one end that connects that side of that new addition to the building to the main building. And I'll read you some information about Ressie Jeffries. Ressie Jeffries and LFK had a common experience in the layout of their building. This is information from a book, a memoir from Paul Mishler. Paul Mishler was the principal at Ressie Jeffries at this time. One-room schools resemble a family of adults and children of different ages. The parents and older children in the family provided a nurturing and motivating environment for the younger ones as the teachers and older students did in the classroom. There's no more effective reading teacher for the first grader than the experienced third grader who's proud of his skills. A good way to improve and solidify one's knowledge and achievement in a subject is to teach that subject to others, so mentor, tutor, and learner both benefit. Further, because of the smaller community nature of the one-room school, teachers had the potential to know their students better by being with them for several years, sometimes as many as 6 years. Any of you have the same teacher all 6 years of your elementary school, or at least 2 or 3? Okay, somebody there in the back. Most of these schools we talked about either only had one teacher or 2 teachers at the most. And basically, again, all the children were there, all the grade levels were there together. Because the smaller community nature of the one-room school, teachers have the potential to know their students better by being with them for several years. sometimes as many as 6 years. Teachers were thus able to customize instruction to meet individual needs. Smaller class sizes with more individual attention are generally a benefit. The teaching to individual needs in each of these classrooms was relatively easy to subgroup across 3 grade levels in math and language arts. Achievement in those subjects is quite measurable. Science and social studies are not as much grade level oriented as they are knowledge oriented. Except for a few teachers, it didn't matter to the staff at which grade level Virginia history or U.S. history or geography were taught. Sometimes it was, and I taught in this multi-age situation we're getting ready to talk about. I mean, I think I would have felt very comfortable in a one-room school because I felt pretty much comfortable teaching any subject at a certain level. But you can teach history from the beginning to where we are now, or you can go backward. Either way, you can even start in the middle and go both directions, that kind of thing. Science is a little more challenging. Science is probably the most challenging to match a curriculum, to do a curriculum across grade levels because of the experience or limited experience that students have. But to be able to regroup with across grade levels, because any of you who know anything about education, and I know there are lots of teachers here, know that you have multiple levels in one classroom, and you may not have enough students at that level to provide appropriate instruction, and so it becomes a little splintered, that kind of thing. So this is what we did at Rusty Jeffers. Our goal in this endeavor was to teach the individual pupil, not an arbitrary mean grade level. Admittedly, that is a quantum leap for many educators. The attempt at multi-age grouping began well, sputtered, and after about 10 years was abandoned. I would suggest several reasons for the ultimate abandonment of the program: inadequate initial and ongoing training, unaccepted leadership, changes in grade level configurations by the county. If you haven't been here in the county for a long time, we had primary school, elementary school, intermediate school, and high school. Then we went from primary to upper elementary, middle school, and high school. And our current configuration is elementary, middle, high. So education doesn't stay the same. That's one advantage I think the rural schools had. It operated however you wanted it to operate, which would have been a pretty good situation. Okay, but Mr. Michelin mentions, and I would agree, that education keeps trying to find the right way to do it. We haven't found it yet. Technology, in some ways, has helped us because we can't do more individualization of assignments and material related to the curriculum, but we haven't figured it out yet. So we got a ways to go. But when LFK was built on this model. We got some original teachers at LFK here, and they taught in pods, and it was total open space, no walls, and it was interesting, wasn't it? Like it was challenging, and I have to say, the teachers made it very successful. It was challenging for the community to understand, for parents to understand, very frustrating at times for teachers to understand and implement the expectations. But this is pre-SOLs. So, that wasn't the challenge, but we have always had assessment in education. And so, and accountability beyond the local schools now. Every year, we hope they'll give more, I'll give my political speech. We hope they give more control back to the states. The Constitution does not, anything that's not stated in the Constitution is left to the states, okay? Education is not in there. So it should be a state-controlled thing. And you talk to some people and they say it is state-controlled as long as you don't take any federal money. And it can't function without federal money for the most part. So, I mean, that's one of those realities of growth. If you remember, the first thing we talked about was population growth. When you were in a community, when you had your own community school, you had your group of parents, and as long as they agreed, then everything was fine. They didn't have to go outside of that realm. But it's very interesting how that. And everybody, I'm sure, recognizes this building. This is a ChatGPT photo too. However, as far as the building is concerned, with the exception of a few trees that have been trimmed, that's pretty much the way Warren County High School looks. However, it didn't have quite as much space as it looks like in this picture. But it did have those windows you had to push up, and no air conditioning. Did have wooden floors. If you've not been to the Warren County High School in some time, if you were there in the early days, there are rooms in the front of the building that still have blackboards, black slate boards, the wooden floors, the window frames, the same wood. They are historic. They have been designed to remain historic. So, okay, so you again, if you'd like to have an opportunity, and mention the blackboard reminds me. I quizzed some of the people at the Heritage Society of it. How many of you went to school where the teacher wrote on a black chalkboard?
Leighton chalk. Erasers. Yeah, anybody.
Yep, that's the erasers outside. I see it. Okay, how many of you went for what was probably the briefest period of time, green boards? Green chalkboards. We used to call them green blackboards. Okay. How many of you went when they converted to whiteboards? What's that? Yeah. Okay. Anybody here who has attended school, that they have the smart boards? No, I don't recognize, but there might be some people. How many of you have been in a math or science class where there is not a board that the teacher puts everything through the computer on a large monitor? Skyline Middle School has that set up for some of their science and math classes. I'm not sure about Warren County Middle School, and I don't know if they still have it. They were installing those about 2 years ago, and I haven't heard too much about it. I have a feeling it didn't work. But it's one of those technological innovations that people hope will work, and it doesn't. But the high school was actually built in 1939. During the summer of 1951, 4 more classrooms were added. And in 1961, the value of that building was $725,000. So that was the school, right? The school. Now, how many of you went to school when you could smoke at school?
They do. Sorry.
At Warren County High School, I can't remember the exact, I mean, I know it was there when I came in 71. I don't know after that, but there were smoking areas in the courtyards. Students could smoke in the courtyards. I can tell you there were administrators who smoked in their office. Okay. I won't. I won't mention any names, but that was okay. I mean, that was the thing, thing you did. But
On the upstairs one community school, the meetups are so large, there's a flat area. Some of the teachers would go out of that black union smoke. I said, I'm going to puddle. And now actually it's in their fighting chapter.
that's right. Now, when I came to Warren County, one of my best friends was the girls' basketball coach. And we used to always try to go to her games. Her games are in the part of the building. The gym used to be the part of the building that is now the library. Okay. And the gym has been added on to that. And the layout of the building is that if you go on the second floor, the library is still the height of a gym. And so there's a walkway around it with glass, and so you can look down. But if you think about it, that's where bleachers were up that high, down to that area. If you haven't been in any of our schools recently, you need to take a visit because most of them have recently been renovated, and they're in very good shape, all things considered. They're definitely in better shape than the rural schools were, I guess we could say. But it was a different time, and I want to share one more reading with you about the rural schools. But this is the Front Royal Colored School. Okay, I don't have any information about how many rooms, but I recognize it for 2 reasons. One, and I have to say, part of the inspiration was to share with you about our schools. I went to the presentation the NAACP did on the history of education for Blacks in Warren County, and they had worked with Hannah, and they had a wonderful presentation about their early schools, their teachers. They shared memories of classmates and all of those things. And I thought, we should never forget. We should be able to go back and look at pictures. And there are things around, but they're not collected. Once again, I would encourage you to think about you or a couple of people in the community. Pick a school that you'd like to know more about, or maybe you attended or had family attend, and compile a little history of it and put it together and give a copy to the Heritage Society. They'd be glad to put it in their archives for you. Recognize this?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what is now the school board office. No, I take that back. You're the school board office. It used to be in school board office. See, I like that. I've been around a long time too. When the colored school closed, the county took it over, and it became a maintenance garage. And the front part was the superintendent's office. And then the maintenance garage got built on the back of it. It's where transportation is now. It's where all the buses park on Chrysler Road. Okay. And so the whole building became the school board office. And I worked there from 82 to 99 in that building. Okay. And Pam McGinnis had just moved back, former superintendent, had just moved back from his position in Rappahannock County. At one time, Warren and Rappahannock were a joint school system. And Susan, what year did Rappahannock come back? Yes. Rappahannock went on its own, and it was all Warren County. But this was the school board office. And if you're aware, the school board office is now at the end of the government center, at the far end of that. Used to be a drugstore when I came here. It was a drugstore, and the government center was a grocery store. Okay. But the county bought that building and remodeled it for the school board office. And Pam McGinnis was superintendent of schools at that time. And when they were asking her about what she wanted in the new school board offices, she said, as long as all the furniture matches, I'll be happy. Because every school pretty much got hand-me-downs, and we swapped stuff around, and the school board office wasn't any different. So that's the last school, but I just want to go back to sort of the memories that, the Longton School, and I don't know how we missed that, but I'll get Hannah to put a picture on Facebook. Oh, okay. But many of you may know that building. Janet Rome lives in that building. She and Chuck, and they have a pottery studio there. Janet wrote this book several years ago. It's some memories that she recorded with some Lymeton ladies. There are 5 women that were prominent in Lymeton, and they expressed some things that kind of will bring us back to the way it used to be. Where it starts. We pretty much stayed around home. Maybe once a year, we would go with my dad to Front Royal on a Saturday afternoon while he bought supplies. There was a train that came from Lymeton at 8 a.m. and came back from Front Royal at 6 or 7 p.m. That would be a long day in town. Sometimes we'd go with my dad and brothers to a sale. That was about as far as we went. We didn't know what a vacation was. I started school a little young. You were supposed to be 6 when you entered first grade in September, but my birthday was in October, so I got to start when I was 5. It's still an issue in schools today, folks, as to if you're on the border of your 5 between the time school starts and the end of the year, and there are regulations about that. And you just need to get clarification from your school. If you have children or grandchildren in that category, go to your school and ask what you can and can't do. Because in any of the rural schools, I don't believe they ever had kindergarten. I may be wrong, but I don't believe they ever had kindergarten. For many years here in Warren County, when we had kindergarten, it was half-day kindergarten. And but then now the state has mandated that you have full-day kindergarten. So it was So she's saying that she got to go at 5, but it was a good thing. I couldn't wait to go to school. I always wanted someone to read to me. I was so excited when I was going to learn to read. When I got home from my very first day of school, my mother was waiting for me. Well, Louise, did you learn to read? I stomped my foot. No.
Right? That's good. Good.
It's why here. I went to the Longton School. I dearly loved our teacher, Miss Anna Bell. Did anybody know Anna? Everyone loved her. Some of the boys got whippings every day. They still loved her. She'd whip them and then hug them. Her daughter Wanda later taught the first 3 grades, while Mrs. Bell taught the older 3 grades. So you can see the rural schools had a home atmosphere, a real community atmosphere. As our schools have grown, we've lost some of that. We've tried some strategies to try to make that more available. It's more and more challenging. Social media has, and COVID definitely had an impact, not just on the education of students during that time, but on the social skills. I was not a full-time teacher, but I was a substitute teacher. And when students first started coming back, there were very few kids in the class. And so kids that ordinarily wouldn't have spoken to each other spoke to each other and sat beside each other for lunch. It was, again, a sense of smaller community, no competition, no groups, that kind of thing. The challenge when everybody came back, if you can imagine your routine that you haven't been in for 2 years, or starting school in a new building, and the people who had been there hadn't been there for 2 years, but there are 2 groups, 2 grade levels of people that haven't ever been in that school. You lose sight of what that happens to sense of community.
When the kids had to wear masks,
And when wearing masks, couldn't be close to each other, all that rigmarole. It was a very challenging transition. I do think everybody learned from that, but it was particularly challenging for students. Academically, I do think they're catching up. Community-wise, with cell phones, it's a little more challenging. Everybody wants to be on their cell phone. Nobody wants to talk to anybody else or do anything. And if they do want to talk, they text each other. And I know you've got children, probably children, grandchildren, that you see the same thing. They're sitting beside each other. And instead of talking to each other, they send each other a text. So a sense of community is something that if we want, we have to be willing to support and look for ways that we can do it. One of the best ways you can do it is support the schools, because they're doing the best they can. They don't get to pick their students. We as public educators take everybody and want to work with everybody and want to do our best for them. And as my first principal said to me, don't get upset with the kids you have, and don't get upset with their parents. They're sending you the best kids they have. They're not keeping the good ones at home and sitting. So, and again, when the rural schools were in existence, it was a little easier. Everybody knew everybody else. I grew up in a small town too. I mean, if something happened at school, the parents knew about it before you even got home. Okay. And if if the school didn't, and now I grew up in, again, a very small community, but if the school had a problem with you and your parents didn't take care of it, the church in our community, the church people would straighten you out. So, so there's always somebody watching, always somebody willing to help and bring kids along. But the thing I would share is, again, support our schools, support our communities, and I would encourage you, join the Heritage Society.
Is that, I kind of,
It is a wonderful opportunity to learn. If you can, just your membership helps, because the archives have to be maintained, the employees have to be paid, the historic spacers have to be maintained. Hannah's an excellent housekeeper. She'll show you how to do historic house cleaning, where you have to wear gloves, and do things with feather dusters and that kind of thing. I mean, those are fun experiences. There are a lot of fun things going on at the Heritage Society, and they are making a conscious effort to make sure that people know that Warren County has a history beyond the Civil War. I think for a long time, Warren County, that was something that, they were a part of, and they wanted to share that with people. But there's so much that has happened recently. And I don't know, you may have seen, I think there's an article in the paper. They actually received all the archives from Avtex. They're in the process of cataloging those, so they can tell you the impact. If you think back to the population chart, you can see the impact of a large plant or community with bringing population, those kinds of things. So there's a lot to learn, and you need to be lifelong learners.
Enjoy it.